I often get this feeling like my ability to enjoy my own life is connected to a battery that's constantly being drained. And I have to do things to keep that battery charged, or else I get pretty miserable pretty quickly. It seems like some people are generally content and happy in their lives unless there is an active problem, unless something is working to undermine their happiness. But then other people, I think, are in a constant state of discontentment and feel generally unhappy unless there's something actively happening to make them feel happy. Unfortunately, I am the second type of person. I don't find existing in this world in and of itself to be an inherently enjoyable experience. And it's caused a lot of misunderstandings between myself and people who I love who happen to be that first type of person. People whose default state seems to be one of contentment and joy and peace. I can be visibly and obviously in a bad mood. And if someone were to ask me why, like, what's wrong? What is the problem? I don't always have a super compelling answer. I can always think of something to be upset about, and sometimes I will, just to make that conversation make sense to the other person and give them an answer as to why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. So maybe I'll say, like, oh, I'm just, I'm stressed about the economy, or, work is hard, whatever. That's not necessarily the actual reason that I was upset, though. Plus, sometimes when I try to think of a reason that I'm upset to justify my mood, in order to think of all the things that are screwed up about my life or the world in general, it actually then puts me in a worse mood because then not only am I still upset just because that's my general baseline, unless I have a reason not to feel that way, now I'm also more mindful and more conscious of other big picture problems in my life or just in the world, and that gets stacked on top of my emotional state. And now I feel even worse than I did before. I don't like that this is true about me, but it is. I can be in a bad mood for absolutely no reason, or at least more accurately, no reason beyond, like, nothing that would make me feel good is currently happening, or it's been a few days since anything exciting or special happened. It, if you're hoping I can explain why this happens to me physiologically, like on a biological level, I can't. I have theories about that, but I'm not certain about them. And I don't like to present stuff to you guys unless I'm pretty sure about them. This channel is not meant to be Scott's crackpot theories about how the world works. But despite being built the way that I am built, I think that I've managed to end up with a pretty good life. There was certainly some help in that. There was probably some luck involved in that. But I've learned quite a few things in my 41 years of doing this about how to manage the type of brain that I have. And so if you relate to me on this, if what I've described so far sounds a bit like you, I am making this content for you. I'm going to teach you the main ways that I've been able to feel pretty good most of the time, despite being what I would consider to be a pretty naturally unhappy person. So the first thing, and probably the most complicated by far, is to try to keep that battery charged. If you know that you're not the kind of person who's going to just be content to exist on a normal or average day, and that's actually a relatively unpleasant experience for you, you can't expect yourself to just keep trudging through life indefinitely with no system in place to help you enjoy it. You aren't built for that. I like to think of myself as being kind of like an electric car, which is a little unflattering because I don't totally love electric cars, but it's a good metaphor. I can only go so far before I need to stop at a charging station for a while. And what I'm charging is my emotions. It's my joy, it's my excitement, it's my sense of reward for existing. I have to build these things in. They don't just happen for me. So I try to build my life around these so-called charging stations. And I think of smaller ones and bigger ones because I'm a very busy person, right? I have a family, I have a business, I have this YouTube channel. It's not like I can just build my life around doing things that make me feel good and having fun all of the time. Even if I could logistically do that, there's problems with that, which we'll talk about in a second. But so I have daily charging stations set up, and they're fairly small things. This is going to be very individualized from one person to the next. But just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, my morning charging station is I try to get outside within an hour of waking up. What I do outside might vary from one day to the next. Often I go for a walk, listen to a podcast. I might just sit on my swing. I might do a project outside like yard work or something. Being outside for me is incredibly recharging. It quiets the chaos, it gives me something beautiful to focus on, and it helps me just get away from the inherent negativity and pessimism and nihilism that is my brain. So that's my morning charging station. Midday is hard because Monday through Friday, I work a pretty like 8 to 5 ish schedule, so I don't have a ton of free time. It's little, but it really does help me. I try to make sure I always have a good lunch. Ideally, that's something I've already brought from home or something that my wife has made me. Worst case scenario, there's always DoorDash, there's always Jimmy John's, but I don't get much during the day because my midday is mostly work. So I need something in the middle of the day that I'm like, okay, I just got to get through this, and then I get to have my sandwich or whatever. And it has to be an actual good sandwich. It has to be something that is actually rewarding or reinforcing to me. So my midday charging station is usually food. And then evening, as soon as I come home, I always try within an hour of getting home to try to do something special with my family. That, and when I say special, I don't mean like something super dramatic. I mean like bike ride with my daughter, little fishing trip with my son. We are fortunate to have water 50 feet away. Even just taking him out on the swing set or something. Just little things that make my day feel special. Because I know that if I don't have those, it just does not go well for me. I can feel like the life and the joy draining out of me. I also try to make sure that at least once per week, I have something, quote, big. And big doesn't have to be like a vacation. Again, it could be, maybe there's a fair that we're going to go to, or maybe I'm going to cook a new piece of meat on a barbecue, or, working on a project, whatever. It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be expensive, but just something that isn't just your mundane routine. So that's how I keep my battery charged. Morning, afternoon, and evening charging stations, one big thing per week. That helps me always have something on the horizon, usually never more than a few hours away, that I am anticipating. Because I have learned through trial and error that if I look in the near future and I just see nothing, that's going to be a problem for me pretty quickly. Now, again, those are just my specific ideas. If you listen to that and you're like, that sounds miserable, that life would not make me happy at all, that doesn't mean this idea is a bad idea. It just means you and I are not the same. So you might need to replace my charging stations with your charging stations. But if you're this sort of inherently unhappy type of person, always having something on the horizon that gives you that reason and that next step to look forward to within reason is critical. Now, I emphasized within reason because it is my personal opinion that this brain type that we have makes us substantially more prone to addictions. And I don't just mean substances, I mean behavioral addictions, things that don't necessarily have a physiological element of addiction, but that we get sucked into and want to do over and over and over again. For me personally, drugs and alcohol never really got a hold of me. They had plenty of opportunities to do so, but those things didn't stick. But the thing that almost ruined my life was video games, because that was the first thing that I stumbled upon that I could do easily and consistently, like it's pretty much always available, that my brain went, whoa, I like this. This feels good. I look forward to this. This triggers my reward center in a way that just being alive and doing normal being alive stuff does not do. And it nearly destroyed my life, because once you find things that actually feel good to you, if that is a dramatic departure from how you feel most of the time, that thing can very quickly and very easily become the only thing you want to do. So you have to be really careful with this to make sure that whatever the things you organize your life around are, whatever your charging stations are, that they aren't things that are going to destroy your finances or your health or your relationships. Use them sparingly. The second thing that helps me cope with having this type of brain, and this one is going to sound a little untherapist-like, just so you know, but this is my personal opinion. Don't try to get people to understand unless you know that they are the same way that you are. This one has caused me so much heartache in my life because I've not generally been around, especially earlier in my life, as far as like friends and family, I've not been around a lot of people who seemed to feel the way that I felt. And so when I tried to explain to them why I was unhappy or like how my brain works, I was met with blank stares, confusion, doubts, judgment, invalidation. Not on purpose, I don't think. I don't think people who have an inherent happiness that is only not present if it is disrupted are any more able to understand us who lack that than we are to understand them. And I don't mean this to sound judgmental at all. Like when I look at people who can just be walking around smiling and there doesn't appear to be a reason for it, I don't understand that. I don't know how that works. I don't know how that's possible. I literally cannot comprehend it. And no matter how much someone would try to explain that to me, I'm not going to understand what it is like to be that person. I don't think they're any better able to understand us. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have relationships with them, can't love them, they can't be good people. But I think if you try to really get them to understand on a visceral level who you are and how you operate emotionally, it's just going to be an exercise in futility. Maybe that's part of why I've chosen to mostly surround myself with depressed people all day long, because they are my people. But this is not my therapy session. Some people will get it and some people won't. Keep the ones that get it close, because in my experience, they are rare. The third thing that has helped me deal with being this type of person is to stop wishing that I was someone or something that I am not. This one probably took me the longest out of everything. I used to get so jealous of people who seem to naturally enjoy existing. Like, they're smiling, but nothing is happening. What, did someone like cast a spell on them? Like, what? Why are they happy? What's going on? How does this work? Once you figure out how to operate your brain, once you understand how to keep yourself charged, once you know who to open up to and who not to open up to, being this way isn't all bad. And if you're much earlier in the process of understanding and coping with who you are than I am, that might sound insensitive. That's not my intent. This is a total stereotype, but I think it makes us more creative, and I think it makes us more productive because we're more driven. If it takes more for you to enjoy being alive than it does for most people, and you embrace that and you just harness that and you just say, okay, then that's what I have to do, you're probably going to have a higher output than most people. You're probably going to end up doing a lot of really cool stuff if you just roll with it and accept that you are built that way. And that's legitimately a need that you have, just like some people need more sleep than others. That's probably part of why I have the output that I have. Like, I think if I were not that kind of person, I don't think I would have bothered to write a book. I don't think I would have felt compelled to. And if nothing else, being the way that you are can allow you to help other people who are like you. And I know how lonely it can be to be that kind of person. So I think that's an incredibly valuable thing, and I don't want you to ever underestimate how important that is, which is a perfect lead into my last point. Know that you are not alone. I spent so long thinking I was literally the only human being on Earth who had this type of brain. I'm not, and neither are you. You've got me, right? I mean, if what I've described sounds accurate to your internal experience, you know I'm with you on this. Many of my therapy clients, who I can't tell you who they are because confidentiality, but these are the kind of people I talk to all day long, and they all think they're alone too. And that's part of why I run so many groups here, is because I wanted to prove to them that that wasn't the case and get them together with a group of other people to say, no, in fact, here are some awesome people who are very similar to you. Bond now. It doesn't always work that way, but it's not just you. There are many of us. And I think maybe, I don't think we're the majority. I do think there's more of us than we think, because these things are hard to talk about. It's hard to let this stuff out. It's hard to be vulnerable around something that most of the world doesn't understand, but I don't think we're like 1 in a million. We'll see how well this video does. That'll be a good barometer of it, but it's not just you. You don't have some glitchy, faulty brain. You're not a mistake. You just built different in a way that has pros and cons. And it might feel like it has more cons than pros. I'm not even necessarily trying to say that you're wrong about that. But if you are this way, you just got to roll with it. You just got to figure out ways to make it work for you in your life. It can be done. My path may not be exactly the same as yours, but hopefully you can at least use what I have done as a rough template to figure out your own path forward and make this work for you. I'll keep making content around this topic if that helps. I know it's complicated. This is just sort of the entry point into this idea. I hope this helped. Take care, and I'll see you next time.